trying to find a solution. So
Well, that
he was
that
great.
that is something we see happen over and over here in Missouri. But you've been kind enough to make some time for us today to talk about some folks that talk on the Rate Coalition, something that you're a big part of. Give me the rundown on what the Rate Coalition does.
Well, the Rate Coalition is basically a combination of mostly corporate entities, but I don't know that people realize how closely connected corporate America is with small businesses.
Yep.
And so we really represent both big corporations and small businesses because they all are affected by any changes in the corporate tax rate. I don't think, a lot of people don't know that almost 1.5 million small businesses, just under 1.5 million small businesses, come under the corporate tax rate. They're licensed as a corporation, and so they're still a small business, but that's how they're licensed. So they pay that corporate tax as small businesses. The small businesses are dependent on our corporate America to be able to produce things that they sell, to do all sorts of things like that. So we represent those to talk about the importance of not letting the amount of a corporate tax rate become a tug of war between parties or what have you, but remembering who's most important here, and that is the people that are creating our jobs in this country, the people that are working at those jobs, what it means to the communities that they live in. And so that's what we're trying to bring about an awareness of, is talking about. I don't think a lot of people realized how successful we were when we lowered the corporate rate to the 21% corporate rate that it is now. It was very successful in increasing investments, increasing wages for workers and families, economic growth. It was a tremendous help to our U.S. competitiveness. Is being competitive with these other countries and their corporations and their manufacturing. So any increase in the corporate tax rate right now would put us back into that hole.
I watched Republicans with President Obama. Anything President Obama thought or said, regardless of if they even agreed with it, it was like a reflexive no, especially toward the end of his term. It feels like with President Trump, there's a lot of Democrats that have the same thing. If Donald Trump's for it, it doesn't. It's so funny. One of our greatest statesmen was Dick Gephardt, who was a tried and true Union Democrat to the end, still is to this day. He fought his whole life for tariffs, similar to what Donald Trump's doing. I watch a lot of Democrats today come on this show, and I'm like, well, you don't like tariffs? Wait a minute, you always have. And I watch a lot of Republicans say, well, you hate tariffs, right? Or you did like a little bit ago. Do you, with this corporate tax cut and the success it's had, it feels like some folks just, if Trump's for it, they're against it.
Well, I mean, what we're trying to do is find where's the best spot for us to be. I mean, if they're going to try to increase the corporate tax to pay for some of the things that they want to do, they need to think through. I mean, that's the point here. We're in a pretty good spot. We're probably not in a place to lower the tax rate, but we sure as heck aren't in a place to increase the tax rate. And so, the important thing is to remember, what are we looking for? We're looking for making sure we can continue to be competitive in a global marketplace. We want to make sure that, hardworking men and women can find the kind of jobs that they need. Making sure that we can be competitive globally. Those are the things that we want to make sure we're doing. And remembering that, again, it's not just big corporations. It's small companies as well. The tax cuts that we did, really boosted investment and growth. If you look at the records, they show us what they did. It was meaningful. So I think it's important for us to look at what we want to accomplish. We get lost in the battles, and we forget that, what's our goal? Our goal is to keep American workers working. It's to keep our costs down. It's to create jobs, to to be competitive globally, so that we can compete with other countries that are investing in in their workforce.
I'm almost embarrassed I don't know this, but how does America's corporate tax rate compare to other countries?
Well, we're kind of smack dab in the middle, unfortunately. You've got places like Ireland and I don't know, Switzerland and others that are much lower than we are, and then, and then you've got South American countries and others, Colombia, Costa Rica, Mexico. Those guys are all well, they're just around us. We're just one below the highest.
Oh.
Corporate rate. So we're number 2.
My goodness.
It's not good. And
no.
It's hard for us to be competitive when we're in
something
that
you don't want to be number 1 in.
That was that's where we were before we did the corporate tax rate.
And where do we sit now?
We're kind of in the middle, a little bit just above the middle. In between the UK and Netherlands, France, they're all a little bit higher than we are.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. The closer we get to the lowest, to me that's an inverted thing. Number 1 should be the one with the lowest, which I don't know who that is, but good for them.
Well, Hungary's the lowest at a 10% rate, basically.
10%. I'll tell you. The 2017 tax cuts. I remember this in my business career of owning newspapers and media outlets. I never, in Missouri, we've cut our state income tax, and I've got to be honest with you. I've never made a decision based off the state income tax here. It's just not enough money. Maybe I'm too poor. Maybe I've got too much money. One of the two. I've never factored in. I did see a difference in 2017, not just in the economy and the numbers you see on CNBC or whatever. I actually ran my business differently because it was enough money. It freed me up to make investments. What were some of the other impacts of the tax cuts in 2017?
Well, and that's important when you're just like you're talking about raising the rate. Would not just hit big corporations, but millions and millions of small businesses.
Right here, every one of them.
Right, that's exactly right. Because many of them pay corporate rates, even if they're organized as a corporation, and even if they aren't, it's going to be more difficult for them to find the resources. So I think there was like almost 1.5 million small businesses that would get hit by that rate, and so it's just not productive for where we want to go as a nation or for where each of us wants to go as a state. And a lot of these small businesses depend on corporate companies, whether it's providing them with what they sell. I mean, I look at things like places like Walmart. I mean, Walmart's obviously big in Arkansas. It's big everywhere. But
Sam Walton spent a little time in Missouri.
He did. I think
we claim him a little bit. We also claim Walter Husman Sr. He's from Bland, which is not very far from Jefferson City. We laid claim to our journalism school laid claim to Don Reynolds. So we claim a few of you of a little bit of impact on a few of those Arkansas heroes.
Well, it's funny because I'm from the eastern part of the state, and when I'd go up the whole eastern part of the state, I'd always see the signs for Lambert's Throwed Rolls.
Did you ever have one?
It's in southern Missouri. And of course, my maiden name is Lambert, and I always wondered who I was related to.
So I grew up in Butler County, right on the state line. I went to high school at Neelyville, which you could see Arkansas from. When we'd go out, we'd go to Corning, down to the Pizza Hut in Corning, Arkansas. So Arkansas was just part of our life. I mean, there was a state line, but it really didn't mean anything unless you was buying liquor or fireworks.
And you're right. I mean, and lots of times when we live in these smaller communities, we don't realize, the importance of these types of issues. But if you look at some of these companies, like some of the ones we work with, Cox, for example, the less taxes Cox pays, the more they're going to put their capital into broadband.
Yep.
That's important for us. Or you look at FedEx. I represented the eastern half of the state in the U.S. House, and I had a lot of employees at FedEx. And the less money, corporate money that FedEx is having to pay, they're investing in those workers and in their in the needs and in their ability to keep those good workers by having good programs. American Express is another one. You look at the financial world. They are the largest lender. American Express is the largest lender to small businesses.
I
If
did not know
American
that.
Express, yeah, and if they've got more capital to be able to invest in lending to those small businesses, it's just important, I think, to magnify the fact that it's not just corporate America that gets hurt by this.
Sure.
If you increase this rate, it's going to be communities, it's going to be small businesses, it's going to be healthcare. All of those things are going to get harmed if we go back to that. I mean, we're on a roll here. We've gotten to a place where we can be competitive, and we don't need to go back to where we were. So hopefully we're going to be able to
What does
point
that
out
look
some.
like if they do this? I'm sure. I mean, there's a million ways to sell things, but however they sell it, if they raise the corporate rate, give me a projection on what happens to particularly small businesses.
Well, again, the small businesses that are categorized as a corporation or that are organized that way, they're going to see the increase too. So they're going to have less money to put into their businesses, less money to pay their workers, less money to invest in their communities, which small businesses are a huge part of that. It would be devastating. I think there was a survey in FIB. They found that 80%. I think it was 80% believed that lower tax rates are critical to the health of their business, and that a corporate rate hike would be a disaster for their small business. And again, think about the people they hire. Think about the communities they serve. You look at. I know I've worked with a lot of corporate folks, but I've also worked with a lot of small businesses who are willing to help with after-school programs or put some of their resources into those after-school programs, or invest. The big corporate folks, provide all kinds of things that improve the lives of their workers. I know up in North Arkansas, touring a facility up there, they had a nurses station. And it was great for, obviously, if they had an injury or something on site, they could go quickly to the nurse's station. They didn't have to go through all that. But they could also bring their kids in there when it was time for vaccinations or when it was time for whatever. Just providing services that really make the life of their employees better off. And those are critical. I just think it just makes so much sense for us to, um, don't screw up where we are right now. We're particularly in the environment that we find ourselves, and in the global initiative or the global economy. We need to be focused on keeping our corporations strong. We need to be focused on keeping our businesses strong, and our employees employed and working with benefits that make a difference. And if they were to raise the rate, I just think it would be a big mistake. It would set us back.
It makes a lot of times to me in government and politics, you're projecting. Like you make a campaign promise, you make a promise. Oh, if you pass this bill, it's going to do X. The benefit of this is you can see what lowering the corporate rate did in 2017. You have 8 years now of data. I think for the most part, generally positive. There's a really compelling case not to mess with success, and you would assume this president, coming from the corporate world, would understand that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we haven't even talked about the fact that raising a corporate rate for us in the U.S. would probably return to send us back in the path of tax inversions, and even more jobs lost at the U.S. as those U.S. companies start moving their headquarters, operations overseas, Ireland, all different places. And
Ireland has saved itself, haven't they, with lowering their corporate tax rate? I mean, Ireland was in destitute, and they became a real haven for headquarters. And I assume the leading reason is their tax rate, correct?
Well, it's a good part of it, if not the major part of it, for sure. But that's why I say, recognizing that it causes a whole change of characters and change of issues and a whole host of things for corporations, for families and workers, for communities, for everybody. Because it is all intertwined, and it would be a tough thing to be able to to keep our economy where it's at. We couldn't even keep our economy where it's at if they raise the tax. It's gonna there are gonna be businesses and industries, corporations, and others that make immediate decisions that are gonna again throw us into a tailspin.
I want to thank the folks that let us bring you TWMP Daily. Folks up in the Great Northwest at United Fiber and the United Electric Co-op and the Courtyard by Marriott here in town. When you ever come to Jeff City, you text me and we will get you put up at the Courtyard. Don't stay anywhere else. Just text me and I'll take care of you. Before we go, a lot of folks in southern Missouri on the western side of the state is going to be familiar with northwest Arkansas and the economic boom it's had. I think you could probably attribute that to a Walmart, to a J.B. Hunt, to a Tyson. Those were the drivers. In southeast Missouri, we're familiar with Jonesboro, who's had an absolute growth spurt. And I look back and I look at the major corporations that have put manufacturing plants there. There is a direct tie to folks' jobs, economy, small businesses, and the corporations that call places like Jonesboro and Bentonville home.
Absolutely, and it obviously it is a huge part of for those corporations and what they do, the businesses. But it's the local gas station or the beauty parlor. It's the local churches. It's everybody that gains when you've got that kind of activity going on, that positive activity of people working, making good wages, businesses being successful, making that happen. And they can't do that if they were to see the kind of increase in that corporate tax rate. And again, it doesn't have to just be a corporation. It could be anybody that's benefiting from a corporation, whether they're invested in it, whether they're purchasing from them, you name it. So it's something that I think as a nation we just have to think through very, very carefully. And hopefully people will do the kind of research and understanding like we've talked about here today, about who gets hurt. Everybody gets hurt. Everybody gets some pain out of this. And I think that I think there's a better way to go about it.
Senator Lincoln, I want to thank you so much for the time. I can't let you go before I give you a shout out. He said you wouldn't remember, but he said you were awful kind to him. Blake Rollins, a guy that worked for the Farm Bureau here. He's back with the Poultry Federation now in Arkansas.
Oh, they're a great bunch too.
Yeah, they're just. It's so funny. There's a border. There's an awful lot of transfer back and forth. Senator, it was so nice to speak to you. Thank you so much for making the time.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Look forward to visiting with y'all again. And I'll be headed up that way soon. My husband and I, we like to hit the road every now and then in the summertime. So,
well, Missouri is a great spot. You'll have to come catch a Cardinal game. I assume Arkansas was always in the KMOX blanket of Cardinal networks, right?
Well, yeah. And Dallas. My dad used to take the Boy Scouts down there for ball. I don't know. There's a lot of them. But hopefully you've been watching our baseball team. Razorbacks are going at it.
They are. You got that great left-hander. Boy, I tell you.
Yeah, man.
He's got a little attitude to him, too. I like that. I watched him throw a great game, and when he had a problem with a call, he had no problem saying it. I like that. I like a little fire in a guy.
Well, they've done a great job. We're proud of them. So thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it and appreciate having such great neighbors to the north.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Cheers to your listeners. Take care.
Was former United States Senator Blanche Lincoln of Arkansas. I mean, you could have been talking to Holly Rader almost. That accent, it's sort of like when that accent comes out, my eyes just kind of glaze over, and I just start agreeing with whatever that accent's saying. She is a delight. She was an absolute stateswoman and a treasure for Arkansas. Very, very successful at delivering for Arkansas when she was in the United States Senate. And I think she is what she said she was. She's a doer. She was a person that was a moderate Democrat that brought folks together, and I think makes a hell of a good point. If you want to see growth, you got to have to cut the corporate tax rate. And I get it. There's a debate right now in the Missouri House about bailouts for billionaires and millionaires and all that. I've never got a job unless I started the company from somebody that wasn't richer than me. So, I mean, it's an amazing. Let's look at Briggs & Stratton when I was mayor of Poplar Bluff. There's 3 companies that employ over 100 people that feed into Briggs & Stratton. So Briggs & Stratton may be this big corporation. They provide 1,000 jobs-ish now. I'm not sure where that number is, but somewhere around 1,000. If you average it over the last 10 years, it'd be around 1,000. But also, how many other jobs directly feed into that? Then how many realtors sold a house to one of those 1,300 people? How many dinners have been cooked? Beers have been served? It is an absolute ripple effect, and whether we like it or not, our economic livelihood, even in rural Missouri, is tied to corporate America and corporations. I mean, you look at Jonesboro, the growth there is spurred on by the investment. Look at Cape Girardeau, the university there, sure, but Procter & Gamble has done a great job spurring that on, and a raise in the corporate rate would be. There'll be no positive come from that, except I guess some bureaucrats in Washington get a raise. I want to thank her. Kelton, where is the House at on the bill? Are they still on the bill?
I believe they're still on it right now.
This bill is going to pass for one reason. 2 reasons, really. You have to throw Mike Kehoe in there, but today, John Patterson's going to get enough of his guys to stick in on this. This is a tough vote. To shrug this off and act like it's not is just not reality. This is Jim Murphy. There were 2 outstanding speeches I heard today. One was from Bill Hardwick on why the property tax scheme is bad and why the bill's bad and the process is bad. But it wasn't some negative whining type thing. It was he had examples. It was reasoned. It was not accusatory. It was not attacking. Bill Hardwick's speech was outstanding. Jim Murphy's speech was outstanding. He just owned it. And this is why I love Jim Murphy, who's going to be on the show Sunday, by the way. The reason I love Jim Murphy is he said, this is politically terrible. This is awful politics. But it's good for the state of Missouri. That's why he's going to be on. I love Jim Murphy. If you could clone 163 Jim Murphys, you'd have a hell of a chamber. He owned the fact this is terrible politics, and no one in his district would support this. Most wouldn't. But he thought it was good for the state. And to me, it comes up to 2 things. One, and Ashley Awney. You have to give the Democrat. This will pass because of the Democrats. Now, I thought she could have easily held them up for more or for something. She's chosen not to. I don't second guess all the things she does. But if I'm Ashley Awney, I might want to walk away with some stuff. Shout out to Chad Perkins. I think maybe a father in the next few days. If he's not there to vote, if you check the roll call and Perkins is absent, it is not because he took a walk. It's because he's about to become a father. There will be several walks, though. I have seen a lot of people have family members that are all of a sudden sick and important things they have to get back to in the district. This is a tough vote, guys. And to act like this isn't a hard row for Patterson, for Riley, it is a tough vote for them to deliver, and it looks like they're going to deliver it along with Governor Kehoe, along with Ashley Awney. I will tell you this. I think it's very wrong when this is over if Governor Kehoe doesn't give a shout-out to Ashley Awney. 3D Doug Beck, they got some money for storm relief, but Doug Beck and Ashley Awney, there is no path to pass this piece of legislation with just Republicans, and I think Governor Kehoe owes them a beer, a shout-out, a whatever. He owes them a lot of credit because they could have said no, especially after the double PQs. They could have absolutely said, no, we're not doing it. They certainly could have driven a harder bargain to do it, but good on them. It looks like they're still debating this, but the key amendment was raised by Representative Sparks. it was to remove the severability clause. So essentially you have the sports stadium finance part. Then you've got the second part would be the property tax relief scheme. It is a little scattershot. Reasonable people that support this think it could have some court issues. The thought was, so Representative Sparks said, well, if we're sure all this is constitutional, there's no problem, let's just take the severability clause out. So both things go down if one goes down. I don't think people think the stadium part's going to go down. I do think there is people that are supportive of this that think the other part could go down. And it was like 90-28, something like that. So you see a lot of folks didn't vote because it's an amendment vote, whatever. It's where the rubber met the road. They had 90 votes against that, which makes me think they're going to have 100 votes for the bill. Maybe not quite 100, because you're going to lose some Republicans. I'm going to tell you, folks, I went to a great event. Thanks again to Marty, to Niles Stevens. They invited me to come talk to some West County Republicans clubs, and I'm going to tell you, I didn't know what to expect. First of all, this lodge at Des Peres is like a Taj Mahal. It's really amazing. But I show up, I'm the only one wearing Carhartt, and stick out a little bit. There were every bit of 250. They said 300, and you know how political counts are. They might have been right. I know there was every bit of 250 people there. Packed. There was no more chairs left. Heard they and every one of those folks seemed like they were very much against this piece of legislation. Everyone there that said how they were voting said they were voting no. You kind of expect that, though, from the suburbs. I had a great talk. Mark Cox, what a great MC. Mark Cox just sounds like an MC, right? He's not Mike Elam. Mike Elam, so to me, the MC Hall of Fame goes like this in Missouri. If you want the smooth baritone, slick voice, Mike Elam, Mark Cox. If you want the fire you up and get you clapping, I think you go with Mike Deering. Depending on the venue, those are your guys you want to get for an MC. I think I'm going to the Cattleman Steak Fry. I'm hungry. It's a good time. I think we may take the old F-150 out there and go to the Steak Fry tomorrow. Or no, Saturday. Sunday, this week in Missouri politics, Betsy Fogel's going to come talk about her Senate race. We're going to have an opinion maker panel that will have opinions with Jim Murphy. I guess I'm going to try. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard slogging, but I think I'm going to try to get an opinion out of Jim Murphy. It'll be tough. By the way, speaking of the Murphy clan, I would say the best in-house hire of any association this session was when the Hospital Association talked Jamie Murphy into coming in, leaving the Senate and lobbying for the Hospital Association. I really think that was the best in-house hire any association made. He has done a great job. If they take the shackles off of him, that lobbying team will put wins on the board. Jamie is a top flight guy. Combine him with Rob, the team that Rob put together with Hush and Brent and folks. And I know there's more, but Jamie was a top flight hire. And his dad, I'm gonna do all I can do. Kelton, we got that crowbar out. Maybe we can get you got some pliers we can try to pull on his fingernails. It's going to be tough to get Jim to give an opinion, but we're going to work on it, right, Kelton?
We're going to do our absolute best to get an opinion out of that man.
Good. We can't promise anything, but you could hear an opinion from Jim Murphy, who gave, I think, the best speech because he acknowledged it, right? He acknowledged the literal elephant in the room. This vote sucks politically. There's no upside. But I think it's the right thing to do. And he explained, him and Senator and Representative Seitz explained why they thought it was. I thought it was a terrific inquiry by two guys who know how to get things done. The scoreboard would show they very much know how to get things done. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to Senator Lincoln. I very much appreciate her. What an honor it was to talk to someone I hold in very high regard. And you know why she's a pro, Kelton?
What makes her a pro?
Who's the first person she gave a shout out to? Boom.
Good old Kit Bond.
The man. I think we're working up something very special for our very special State Fair edition of This Week in Missouri Politics. We may have, I can't say for sure, but we might put together a group of bond staffers for our opinion maker panel. Kelton, you going to make it where we can have 4 people?
Absolutely.
All right, I trust him. You all trust it? I trust him. Thank you all so much. I don't know if Jake will be in tomorrow. Jake will be hosting This Week in Missouri Politics next week from the beautiful University of Central Missouri campus in Warrensburg. But I will see you Sunday with Representative Betsy Faughn, Senate candidate Betsy Faughn, on This Week in Missouri Politics.